everybody. We are so excited that you could join us. This is going to be a roundtable of roundtables. It is our love fest here at the Lipedema Patient Roundtable. I am your host, Brenda Viola from Lympha Press, and I will do a quick run around the table and introduce you to our special guests. First of all, our esteemed guest, Dr. Karen Herbst. We love you. We love you. We're so glad you're here. We want you to bring your questions. We want you to bring your comments. Dr. Herbst is here. The Lippy Butterfly, Angelique Charles, is here. Cheryl Scoledge, our Lipedema Diva, is here. Lipedema and food sensitivities. Siouxie Boshoff, we love having you here. We missed you so much last month. Lipedema Living. Direct from surgery, Cara, the pale ginger pear, is here. So nice to have you. She got off a plane and came to the roundtable. How about that? I see Dr. Anne Kahn has just plugged on, and our special guest tonight, we're so glad to have you, Beth Rylaarsdam, also known as CurvyGirlBeth, at CurvyGirlBeth. Many of your followers are here with us tonight. So glad to have you here, Beth. And Linda Ann, so nice to have you. We are going to jump in because we only have an hour, so we want to make the most of it. We're wearing red. We hope you are too. We hope you're drinking a nice glass of red wine or doing something red or eating chocolates or something, because we're all about self-love tonight and loving on each other. Will you be our Galentines? And if you're a gentleman, you can be our Valentine, whatever. But anyhow, let's get to it. I invited you, Beth, because number one, you always talk about embracing who you are and loving yourself. Could you give us the elevator pitch for what your philosophy is?
Acceptance is key. That is the elevator pitch in less than 30 seconds.
And how do you get there, Beth?
You know, it's really interesting because I think that I have always felt that you first have to embrace yourself wherever you're at. We all, regardless of whether we have lipedema or lymphedema, we all have something in our selves, in our work life, in our home life, in our living space, whatever, our car, anything that just isn't up to par for us. And I think that if you get to a point where you can just be like, this is how it is. I think you have to get to this is how it is instead of a woe is me, oh my gosh, and just accept that this is how it is and that everything has a season. And once you're kind of embracing that, I think that you can accept that this is how you are, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. And then you can make assessments as to how you want to handle it from there and what you want to do. Do you want to sit down and just be like, oh, you know, woe is me, there's nothing I can do about it, that's it, this is what my lot in life? Or do you actually want to try and manage it or improve it or you know, just accept it how it is and kind of sit into it even.
Leaning into it, like Sheryl Sandberg says in her book, lean in. And you know, what I love about this roundtable is everybody's got a different approach. The way I love myself and the way I take care of myself is different than the next person. And it's all okay. This is a no judgment zone. We believe in uplifting and supporting each other. And that's why we have such inspirational people and why we're just so glad to have you all here at the table tonight. We're going to get back to more of your message, Beth, but I want to ask everybody around the table, what's the latest thing you learned about lipedema? And you know, I'm going to you first, Dr. Herbst. On the spot. What's the latest thing that you've learned about lipedema or in the lipedema community?
The latest thing that I've learned is that not everything that looks like lipedema is lipedema.
Ah.
So
All right, we're all leaning in now. Tell us more.
Well, there's different ways to get increased fat tissue, for example, on the legs. And I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the why, but if you see somebody who looks like they have lipedema legs, but they undergo bariatric surgery, for example, and they lose all their weight, well, they probably didn't have lipedema, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at some of the articles that have come out from Europe, like the European consensus document, they show women who have, you know, larger abdomen, but they also have legs that look like lipedema, and they lose all of their weight after bariatric surgery. And if that were true, then we would just be sending women with lipedema to bariatric surgery. And I'm sure every one of you either has had bariatric surgery or knows someone with lipedema who's had bariatric surgery and it was not successful. So that just tells you that when you're looking at these syndromes where they say, oh, this family had, you know, all these conditions, plus they also look like they had lipedema legs, just doesn't mean that it really is lipedema.
That is a really great point, and we'll probably get back to that one. We want to welcome Dr. Jaime Schwartz. So nice to have you here. I was wondering if you were ever going to come back and visit us again, but I know that you have a good connection with our pale ginger pear. You just had an amazing surgery, and the question I'm asking everyone is, what's the latest thing you've learned about lipedema? So pale ginger pear, I'm going to ask you next, then I'm going to go to Dr. Jaime.
I guess my thing was that I learned that my stomach was a lot worse than like we expected it to be. Like he stated that there was like almost no normal like tissue or fat in my stomach. Like it was all nodules. Like the video for it even like caught me off guard at how bad it was. Fascinates me, but yeah, it was.
So you were surprised about the amount of lipedema nodules that you had in your stomach.
Yeah.
And what's the latest thing you've learned, Dr. Jaime? Do you learn something new with every person that you treat?
We're still learning so much more about this. And one of the best things, like I said, with having Cara here with us is that, you know, we're looking at it from a different level. We're really looking inside now. We're looking at everything that we see. We're looking at different nodules. We think there's different types. It's honestly amazing. I don't know if Dr. Herbst even lets you know, we're putting together a whole research thing. So everybody will be documenting everything before and after, and our outcomes that we're seeing really are great, but now it's time to really, you know, put that out there in the literature, so people can know that, you know, things do work, and of course then insurance and all the other stuff that's out there. But yeah, but we honestly learn so much all the time, and it's great having her, because the stuff that I don't know is really, she really helps us with that stuff. So it's really great.
We're so excited about the research, and we're excited about the advances that have been made by people that genuinely care. And it is the medical community, but there's also this groundswell of patients who are saying, I'm going to advocate for myself and my condition. In fact, Cheryl, you and I were just talking recently about how you sometimes walk in armed with information to educate your medical professionals, and it's working. Whatever works, right? What's the latest thing you've learned, Cheryl?
Well, actually, well, as you know, I'm big into food sensitivities and believing that it's the food sensitivities that causes the inflammation, which then leads to the fibrosis and the lipedema tissue. And one of the things that really hit me over the past month is that it is just so easy to assume that you're intolerant to one item when in fact it's something else. And with how many ingredients are in our foods these days, it's just so easy to overlook that one item that's in that ingredient list that is the actual thing that you're intolerant to, when in fact you're assuming that it's something else in that list. You know, so as an example, a lot of people may assume that they're intolerant to dairy in a coffee drink that they buy at the corner store. But, you know, maybe it's the coffee, maybe it's the nutmeg that they sprinkled on top. You know, every single item that is in there is something that you are potentially sensitive to and could be leading to the inflammation. So
sensitivities are really important. And one of the things my friend Siouxsie has been working on is a guilt-free gummy. Is that what you've been learning this last month, Siouxsie?
I mean, I've definitely been immersed in my gummy world, but what led me to it is, I mean, because I eat keto is what I found for me with lipedema, but I also know that some people don't do well with keto, but I'm finding that it's because of the seed oils and the other things that are inflammatory. So I'm almost carnivore keto, but I still like having a treat. So I created these gummy bears that I was making at home. And then during lockdown, my husband was like, these are really good. You should bring them to market. And I'm like obsessed with non-GMOs and organic and blah, blah, blah. So we're bringing them to market in literally a week. We're pre-selling them. It's been insane.
Gummies. Where can people find out about your gummies?
AwesomeGummyBears.com. And you know what?
What?
Super, super tasty. And don't have any crap in them. No sugar alcohols, no garbage.
Lippy Butterfly, you often are creating amazing things in the kitchen and you're really into healthy eating. But maybe you learned something completely different this past month. What did you learn?
Well, with that being said, I learned that it is okay to form what works for you dietary wise. I was struggling so hard to stay on top of the sensitivities that I had more cheat days than I had on days. So I decided to just go ahead and try out a version of keto that was a little bit dirty as far as adding in carbs from vegetables, not as necessarily dirty, like a dirty keto, but not necessarily adding in sugars and things like that. And I found that I am more motivated to want to food prep again. Some weeks I just decided to not do it at all. And then now I'm like, well, maybe I can add in a second option for meals. And I feel more hopeful about my dietary needs. So I learned that it was okay to give myself the liberty to switch it up as long as I just didn't give up.
Great message. And you always inspire us not to give up, Lippy Butterfly. I love that. Hey, Curvy Girl Beth, what's the latest thing that you've learned?
This month I have learned that everybody has a different surgical journey for those who choose it. And you can't really, again, just like the dietary thing, as Angelique was saying, you have to tailor to yourself. You have to tailor that you're going to have your own experience, and you can't predict what's going to happen, and you can't even predict from one surgery to the next because they're just different.
I have a question that came in from the audience. Cynthia Mason asks, are there scans, x-rays, etc., that show exactly where the lipedema fat is located in the body, or do you have to actually locate it all via surgery? It's a great question, and I'd love to throw the floor out to Dr. Schwartz or Dr. Herbst.
I think you can find some lipedema tissue surgically, but not everyone is sitting around a surgery table all day long. So I read a paper that's going to be submitted by some colleagues at Vanderbilt University, and they actually are finding signals in the tissue and are able to differentiate lipedema tissue from lymphedema tissue from non-lipedema tissue. So it's super exciting. It's I don't know how accurate it is, but it looks really good. And they also were able to prove that there is edema in lipedema tissue, and we're actually fighting against some misinformation out there, especially from Europe, saying there's no edema in lipedema. But I think this paper is going to crush that, so I'm very excited about it. So
Okay,
yeah,
we love that kind of language. Go ahead, keep talking.
So there, and I think with the at the end of the paper, they say this kind of imaging can be done in any imaging center. And so what they're trying to do is to create an easy way to image lipedema tissue and spread it around to different imaging centers. So anybody would be able to tell whether they have a lipedema or not. And the goal is to really differentiate lipedema tissue from, let's just say, obesity tissue or non-lipedema obesity tissue.
Interesting. Dr. Schwartz, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're also getting to a point with even the physical exams that we're doing, you can really feel the difference in the tissues. And when I'm examining someone, I do that and then try to show people, and I'll say, do you feel this? Do you feel that? And there's pretty common areas where people have it also. I think, I think trying that, but I think you can really, really tell the difference. Then of course, you're going to see the skin does look a little bit different. A lot of times there's pain. And so that's kind of where the worst, usually the worst parts are. So.
Wow. Linda Anne Kahn, you deal a lot with kind of different therapies. And I know that you also deal with the socio implications of lipedema. This topic of self-love tonight, is there any advice that you would want to give anybody watching?
Okay. Well, rose essential oil is the rose of love. So that's what I'm using with my patients. Well, we should do it all the time, but this month. It really is heart-centered, it's calming, it's feminine, it's really healing. So you can do a guided imagery with a rose meditation and embrace all that love into yourself, because I really love what you're all saying, and it is all about self-love.
We had another question come in from the audience, and this might be also a one for you, Dr. Jaime, but anybody can weigh in. And actually, Siouxsie, you said that you had an experience with this. I am new to this, and I am wondering, and this is our new friend, Jennifer Lebrecq. When you get liposuction, is it just the nodular fat that is removed, or does the fibrosis also get removed? I can feel the nodules and also the connective tissue around it now that I know what it is. So by removing the lipedema, will it halt the disease? Does your body's, there's like 4 questions in this question. Let's talk about the fibrosis one first, Dr. Schwartz.
All right, so it's not so much of removing the fibrosis, it's actually the opposite. So the lipedema nodules, the areas that have a lot of lipedema, are really inflamed and causing, it's a vicious cycle of creating fibrosis and breaking down and start. So that's what you're seeing. So by removing it, you're actually making that area, the goal is to stop it in its tracks there. I can't say it's forever, but the thing is, removing the fibrosis, the lymphatic sparing liposuction that we're doing is gentle on purpose, and so that we're not creating more scar. We want to get everything out. There's certain there's certain areas we treat, and I'm usually superficial, like near the skin with this, because the deeper stuff is where the lymphatics are, the larger nodules are. Dr. Herbst and I look at this daily now. And so it's actually, we're trying to remove things, but also do it in a way that's not creating more problems in the future. So, and what I tell people is, I mean, the next day after we do this, people feel better. I mean, they're walking, they're standing, we keep filming them. But the thing is, they'll all, yeah. But the thing is, the most important part of it is that once we start removing all of this, and I always tell people to start resetting the system. So you're getting everything out of there. It's just going back to, we'll call it more of a normal state. Whatever damage has been done is always going to be there. So it's not by like cutting out fibrosis or scar tissue, you're just going to create more of that. So you actually want to, leave what's there to some extent. But that's not what's causing the problem anyway. It really is. So.
I have a great question from Heather Zunker. Heather has been a regular attendee at our panel. And by the way, I see Dr. Lindy McHutchison down there. Hey, Dr. McHutchison, it's great to have you with us tonight. Feel free to jump in with anything. Our topic is love, self-love, loving each other, loving the lipedema community. Heather wants to know how each panelist came to accept their condition, and if they have any advice from those of us like myself who aren't there yet and still struggle with self-love. Heather, I appreciate the question, and it so goes along with our theme, and not everybody has to weigh in, but I feel, first of all, I see you dancing in your chair, Curvy Girl Beth. What would you like to say about that?
So when I was first diagnosed, I was actually diagnosed by Dr. Emily Eicher, who when I walked into her office and she, saw me, she's like, "And you're here for?" And I was like, "To see if I have lipedema." And she said, "Is there a question?" Because I'm so classically shaped. And from that point, she said what she wanted me to do was each month, she wanted me to take a picture in my panties so that I could see how any of the treatment or modalities that we were employing initially made any changes or not. And so that was very foreign to me because I didn't do that before. However, what came of that is an understanding and a connection to my body that I actually never saw. So most of us who have lipedema, I think maybe women in general, but most women with lipedema, if they're in a photo, if they've agreed to have their photo taken, they have a child staged in front of them, or a chair, or they're 5'2" and they're hiding behind the 6'3" guy and sticking their head through or whatever. And so we don't have an example of what we actually look like. And I think that that is truly one of the things that is the most helpful, because as someone, I think it actually was Siouxsie who said, even going around town, if you're at the grocery store and there's a woman who has lipedema, you don't even know she has lipedema because she has this big, huge dress on that covers every bit of her waist, every bit of her hips, every bit of her butt, every bit of her ankles or her cankles, if she has them. And you have no idea that woman is full-fledged, lower half with lipedema. And we don't see that. The representation is nil. And I think that that has really been exceptionally helpful. And that's part of my representation is to say, hey, there are really bodies that look like this.
Siouxsie, do you want to jump in about self-love? You had some really good things to say about that, and accepting who you are. And we're not all hatched that way. It is a process to get there.
Yeah, I will say also having two girls of my own, daughters that are now full grown. And I can say that obviously girls are mean to other girls, the bullying crap. If you have anybody in your life that makes you feel uncomfortable about you, have no qualms about cutting them loose, and then surround yourself with other people. But I will say, when I launched the blog, the Lipedema Living blog, the post that I have pinned is a picture of me in a bathing suit. And I had the photo shoot done right when I did my surgeries, because I was so horrified that I'd spent my life hiding, and I wanted something to commemorate it, but I never intended to share them. I still look almost exactly like that because I'm very noduly, and I just had regular liposuction. I mean, lymphatic sparing, but whatever, I'm still noduly. Anyway, but I didn't want to post this picture. I was so terrified, and I was sitting there looking at this publish button, and my husband said, "What are you doing? Just publish it." And I was like, I don't want to put myself in a bathing suit on the internet. And he said, "But if you don't, then other women aren't going to know that there's other women that look like them."
Wow.
And I actually burst into tears, because that was what happened when Dr. Herbst told me about Lipedema Sisters on the Facebook group, because this was 2013. We didn't have the community we have now. But we have to just keep showing up. And now I'm not scared. It was weird. It terrified me. And then it empowered me. So there's something to that, because it's not as scary as you think it is. People aren't standing on the beach going, "Ooh, look at you." And they actually aren't. And if they are, I'm not going to be inappropriate, but that's all I
We actually kind of like when you're inappropriate on the round table, salty language and all that kind of stuff. It's fun. Go ahead, Pale Ginger Pear, jump on in.
I had said early on from my Instagram and everything that I was going to show what stage 3 or 4 lipedema women looked like, because when I first started my journey, I couldn't find pictures of it. And I get it, because I didn't really want my pictures out there, but I knew somebody had to start it. Like somebody had to be like, well, why not? And like I used my tattoos as my own like self-defense in my head. Like they're looking at my ink, not me. Like, and kind of just use that to embrace it. But I knew, and I think it was one of the first things I even said to Dr. Jaime when I met him at the consult was, whatever we decide to do, I want to document all of it to show that the later stages there is hope, that it's not just, well, if we would have caught this years ago, you would have been good. Like I wanted to show that like I can head to my 40s feeling better than I did at 20.
I also told her, since she's documenting everything, that thank you for healing your tummy tuck so that doesn't have to be out there. But actually, can I say something from a different standpoint? I do hundreds of consults, and you know, the first 10, 15 minutes with anybody, it's always them explaining to me how well they're eating. And I always tell everybody the same thing. I say, you're healthier than me. It's not even that. I always tell everyone, I say, look at it a different way. You're trapped in your own body. There's nothing you did here. There's nothing you could have done differently to get to this point of your life. There isn't. The only thing we could have done differently is that you diagnosed earlier, that's why we're all doing this. But if you think about it from that standpoint, it's not an embarrassment. It's like having light hair, dark hair. It's your body. So, you know, I think if you take it from that standpoint and realize it, forget what anybody else is going to say, but it's really the truth. There's nothing you can do differently. And so I don't know. I look at it from that way and forget the, you know, whatever looks like or whatever. I just don't, I think it's really a sad way of doing that. But I know it's hard. It's hard. And a lot of people cry. A lot of people, you know what they've been through their whole lives. I have daughters too. And so anyway, I think that's the way you can really help people out.
That is such a great perspective. And I know it's touching hearts out there. I'm getting some chatter and comments and private messages, and they're applauding the bravery of the women at this table and thankful for the medical professionals here. You know, I'm thinking, Dr. McHutchison, you see hundreds of patients, and I know that you help them address the physical issues. What would you say about the psychosocial issues and the self-acceptance issue? And what kind of encouragement could you give our beautiful audience out there?
Well, usually what I start with is once we sort of identify the fact that most lipedema women rarely look in a full-length mirror. They sort of see themselves from the, you know, from the like midriff up generally. And most of them, I say, you feel like you are a little tiny person wearing a sumo wrestler costume. And they say, yes, that's what I feel like. And I said, well, what we see is the little tiny person. And I think that Jaime sort of put it correctly. It doesn't matter if you have straight hair, you want it curly. If you have curly hair, you want it straight. Everybody wants what they don't have. And I just try and tell them, I said, you got to remember, your shape was the symbol of fertility. And back in the Renaissance, your shape is what the master artist used to paint. And I said, it is actually a beautiful shape. And if you want to be the little person inside the sumo wrestler, you know, if you want to see that, then see it. I want you to just see what it is that you want to see. But that I try to tell them that their shape was the shape that's been revered throughout history. It's just not sometimes revered to every person they pass on the street.
Lippy Butterfly, if you nod anymore, your head's going to pop off. What do you have to say about this?
I have always thought that the pear shape was an absolutely beautiful shape. As I meet more lipedema women, I am always like jaw dropped at how many women have that classically beautiful shape and are looking to get rid of it. And I'm thinking to myself, really the focus has to be on function. I was that lady that wanted to hide underneath my clothes and wanted to hide behind walls. I had a mini wall built at the church so that I could hide behind it as I played the piano. I didn't want people to see me. That went on until I was hiding in my home and homebound and bedbound. And really the focus has to be on the quality of your life and living life and embracing exactly who you are, and knowing that people out there are looking at you and thinking that you have the most beautiful shape in the world. And then if you see yourself as having that beautiful shape, then you can just live your life trying to function as best as you can.
I'm so glad you're not hiding anymore, because you're amazing and wonderful. And you're right. Your message of function and living a quality of life and doing things to manage your condition, to help reduce the pain, to increase your mobility, that's all part of self-care and self-love. And, you know, I got to do my little mini commercial here, but I represent Lympha Press. And it's helped so many women get their quality of life back, because it can break down that fibrosis, and it helps to reduce pain, and fat pads can be eliminated, and it's so easy to use. And if you want to know anything about Lympha Press, you all know how to get a hold of me, because I would love to talk to you about it. I saw you smiling and nodding as well, Cheryl, so I want to give you a moment.
Thank you. Well, you know, one of the reasons I selected the Lipedema Diva name is just for this reason. I saw just so many women on social media talking about hiding, that they didn't want to go to the beach. They were concerned about showing their bodies. And I just wanted to give that message of living your best life and getting out there and living. There's no reason to hide. Flaunt what you have. In fact, one of the first things I did after I found out that I had lipedema, I bought a rebounder and I put it on my front yard, and I went out into my front yard and rebounded for an hour every day. So all my neighbors know what I look like, let me tell you. But anyway, you know, get out there and do what you need. You need to live life. There's no reason to be stuck at home and not getting out and living the very best life that you could possibly be living. Regain your mobility and get out there.
And you're seeing all these amazing people and you're thinking, oh, I could never get there. Oh, step by step by step, baby steps. Nobody leapt to where they are today. The interview I did with Lippy Butterfly, there was a time when she was bedridden, and look at her today. Pattie Cornute, watch that interview at Lipedema Fitness. She couldn't walk to her mailbox, and now she's like Iron Woman. Amazing stuff. So baby steps, little by little, step by step. I love the quote by Louise Hay. You've been criticizing your whole life, and that hasn't helped. So why not try approving of yourself and see what that does for you? I personally love that quote. So, question from Betsy Hughes. This is a really sensitive question, and we feel you, Betsy, and we're glad you asked it. How can you delicately present the concept of lipedema to your daughters who you suspect are stage 1? Anybody can weigh in on that question? Susie, go ahead.
So I have 2 daughters. Both of them present, one of them keeps it super under control, and she actually models, and she's got a pretty killer body because she's shaped like us, plus she exercises and she hasn't had kids and blah, blah, blah. But she does have the bigger ankles, so she is aware of it. So she's aware of things that she has to do, but she doesn't necessarily agree so that she has lipedema, full on like lipedema. My other daughter is totally shaped like me, 100% knows that she has it, but it was a delicate process over time. And I would ask her little questions like, you know, do your legs ever feel uncomfortable when like the cat jumps on them, and or if your husband squeezes them, or you know, like affectionately but a little, you know what I mean, like tougher, things like that. And she was like, well, yeah, what do you mean? And over time she saw what I was doing with this, being engaged, and I would just share things that I learned for me, not for her, but stuff that I suspected that she was also experiencing. That made her very receptive, actually. And she hasn't been officially diagnosed, but she definitely has all of the symptoms, and for her, it's real that she does have it. So then she follows my lead on like preventative stuff while she can continue to do stuff. So that's,
that's a great, go ahead, Dr. Jaime.
And I was going to say, and you said the delicate conversation, which it has to be, but I tell everyone the hardest thing about lipedema is getting it diagnosed. That's literally the hardest thing. That we can take care of it, we can figure out, we can have machines, the hardest thing. So when if you suspect it in someone, not only daughters, I mean, I tell my patients that they're learning about it, they teach their families about it, they're teaching their doctors about it, and it's grassroots, but that's how we're spreading stuff. And so I know it's a delicate conversation, but I look at it from a positive standpoint, in that they may know early on, and whether it's intervention or things like that, versus like, everybody says that I wish I knew about this 20 years ago. I wish. So, I know it's a delicate conversation, but always look from the positive side, and you're able to really help someone at an early age, and that may help them a lot more down the road. So,
go ahead, Ginger.
So, I mean, I have a boy, but most of his friends are girls, and I just casually talk about the pain I have, what I felt, how it started. I will like have pictures up around my house of me like at their ages, so they can kind of see how it looked early on. I talk about it like with their mom, just as casual, like, hey, this is what my surgery was, this is what I did, just so that, because kids are always listening, whether they want to admit to it or not. Like, they always overhear what they're not supposed to. And so like I will just talk about it so that it's just common knowledge and not something like taboo or hush hush. It's not like, it could be like, oh, my legs are hurting, or after softball they feel really heavy, or they feel this when I do this. Like, they can start to have the idea that this is a real thing, and that it's not anything to like hide at 16 when their friends get the boobs and they get the hips, because that's what happened to me, and it was like completely weird.
Great. Thanks for jumping in on that one. That was really good. I was wondering, Linda, Anne, do you have something you'd want to add on this idea of sensitively approaching the topic to someone you think, and especially if it's a daughter who might have lipedema?
I think that I like what everyone's saying, but I think that the best way is to just be saying, look, this is the best way that we can exercise, that we can eat, that we can be the healthiest, and focus more on the health. Because I'm also very sensitive to anorexia nervosa, and you've got to be very careful with that, and you don't want to trigger that with people. So really just do as I do. We're eating really healthily in this household and doing it that way. But I also want to say something about going back to the body image and everything you were saying. As you know, I have lipedema. I have stage 1 lipedema, and it never ever progressed. But I thought that I had got away from not liking my body. I really thought I had, because I've worked really hard at it. And a few weeks ago, I was at the physical therapy office, and she had me stand in my bra and panties in front of the mirror, and she said, "What do you see?" And I said, "Terrible legs, and look at that stomach." And then I stopped myself, and she said, "No, I'm looking at your posture." And then I realized I still have work to do. So it's hard. You have to work with it, because it's hard to go away. But what I did, I said, okay, I don't like my legs. I've got no ankles, but I have a beautiful smile. I love my hair. And so you find those things about yourself. And I think you can do that with children as well. Look at all the positive things they have, but still encouraging them to lead a healthy life.
Love that. I want to go to a few other questions from our audience. And this is a really good one for our medical professionals also at the table. Can lipedema be diagnosed in a video consultation, or does it have to be felt?
Dr. Herbst, you want to take that? I'm happy to.
My gosh. I've had the same thing going through my head, because I'm doing a lot of telemedicine consults right now. And, I usually say, well, it really looks like you have lipedema, and it really sounds like you have lipedema, or that, and I list all these things, and those are all consistent with lipedema. I think a physical exam is always the best, but you know, when patients say, oh, I have all these little nodules, like all these little peas in my tissue, and they're all over my thighs and all over my arms, and they have the disproportion of lipedema, they have the easy bruising, they have some pain, you know, I think you can do the best that you can and give them a diagnosis and say, well, it would be great, you know, when you can eventually come in and see me or go and see someone who can actually confirm that diagnosis, it would be great. But then you can move forward and treat them.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've my whole career, I've always done virtual consults. I've always taken care of people out of our state and country. What we do to try to help people is we actually send them a questionnaire that they fill out before we do the consult. And by answering those questions, you really learn a lot about people. And the honest thing is, people that think they have lipedema, or, I mean, you all know more. I mean, you do so much research on it, spend so much time on it, that you honestly know a lot. I mean, most people know. It's very rare for me to do, maybe it's 1 out of 100 consults I'll do where I'll say, yeah, please come in, or they're in the office and like, Dr. Herbst, please help me over here. But the video consults, really, you can do it. And the thing is, you got to do it because it's so hard to get diagnosed. It's so hard to find care. And the only way to start moving forward with that is that way. And so I do it all the time and I feel comfortable with it. But yeah, I think it's really helpful for people.
Well, Sue Hunt writes in, how does one find a good lipedema doctor? Well, you can certainly start at this round table. I know the Lipedema Project has a database where you can go in and plug in your zip code. But the fact that you're doing video consultations is wonderful. And I think will bring a lot of hope to people. It never fails. After every roundtable, I get at least 10 emails. How can I get an appointment with Dr. Herbst? So, you know, that's how that goes. You know, I should be your PR person, Dr. Herbst. What do you think? Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about this question from Samantha Casito. I think I'm saying your name correctly. And I'll pose it first to you, CurvyGirlBeth. She used to love rollerblading, but due to her cankles, she can't. Same with amusement parks. Due to my hips and thighs, I can't fit anymore. How do I overcome the hate of my lipedema, since it feels like it takes so much away? And I know, Angelique, you speak to this topic as well, but Beth, go for it.
I think in those situations, so I have been all sizes. I've been way bigger, almost 200 pounds bigger than I am now, and a good 50 pounds less than I am now. And I have been in that same situation, where can't fit in the seat, can't fit in an airplane seat, need a seatbelt extender, all those things. And I think, depending on, I think that you still have to get out there. I think that it shouldn't be if you can physically move, you should not stay behind. And so, if it means that the way you're going to be part of the group is you're going to hold everybody's coat while they go on the roller coaster, so be it. And it is, you have to think of the things that you can contribute and that you do like about yourself. Because as Dr. Jaime says, this aspect is not your fault. You didn't choose to have lipedema that has grown for whatever, all of the reasons that it's grown. And truthfully, it is often difficult to help reduce it, once it gets to certain stages. So I think that just doing all the things that you can do to make your situation better is really part of accepting it. And, as we, keep hearing, insurance is coming around, and really, I'm kind of a believer that if somebody really wants to have lipedema surgery and they have insurance, they need to fight their insurance, because at some point, at some point, they're going to win.
I know that's a fight that you've definitely taken on, Dr. Jaime. and you advocate for your patients?
I have a lot of people that can forget wearing boots and doing that are running again, riding bikes, back to work. If they could walk, if they could hold their arms for 5 seconds, 30 seconds, they're like, they just hold them. They're like, look, this is great. So there's really something with it that works. And so I'm not, you have to do the whole body, and there's a lot more that goes into it. But I'm telling you, as we start removing nodules and things, people are doing everything they wanted to do again. They really do.
Yeah, even pumping too. The Lympha Press, we've seen that people are getting back to their mobility, just find what works for you and do it. And don't give up on yourself, most of all. This concept of not focusing on what you can't do, but focusing on what you can do. Angelique, you said something about that so beautiful a few roundtables ago, and I'm just going to give you the floor for a minute because I just love to hear you talk about it.
One of the things that I'm focusing on this month is not becoming comfortable or not allowing myself to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So if there's something that I like to do and I'm uncomfortable not doing that, then I have to find a way to make it work. One of the parts of my story involved how travel affected my body. And I allowed that to allow me to be afraid of traveling for such a long time. And then after traveling last month, I realized it's something that can be done. There are obstacles that you might have to go through that the everyday person doesn't have to go through, but that doesn't mean that you can't overcome those challenges. Airlines out there understand that different people have different needs. So it's okay to look and see what options are available to allow yourself to travel, or you might even be able to find someone who makes a larger boot for your ankles. Like I made a post a couple of months ago about my first time actually getting into shoes after a while, because I found that certain manufacturers are making shoe holes wider for our ankles now. So it's a matter of forcing yourself to do the things that you love because you love doing them. And that is loving yourself, doing what you love doing so that you can just keep being in life.
That is so cool. And our dear Pattie Cornute has been saying some great things in chat. And I just want to read it real quick for those who watch the replay, because it's good information. She loves modifications. I may not be able to do something that I used to do the way I remember doing it, but a modification. Like she used to love rollerblading and skiing, but now she's snowshoeing and she can wear her shoes, and Nordic walking with poles that give her that similar feeling of skiing. Modifying. Don't just be sad about what you can't do, but perhaps there is a new twist on it that could bring new life to your heart and encourage you. Anybody else before we move on to another topic? You're smiling and laughing over there, Cheryl. What's going on with you?
I know that it isn't a message for everyone who's out there, but one thing that I started with was in the Ehlers-Danlos world, there's the saying of just 5 minutes. And so when I was immobile, I couldn't stand in my kitchen for more than 5 minutes. I was having trouble cooking and et cetera, et cetera. I took that mantra, and I mentioned earlier about the rebounder, and I put it out in my front yard. And I started with that goal of getting to 5 minutes because I couldn't even make it to 5 minutes. But eventually I did. I got to the 5, then I went to 10, and then 15. And so, start with those small goals. You don't have to jump in and do the hour session all at once. You can start with the smaller goal. And as Angelique was also talking, or Pattie was talking about the modifications, there are so many things, so many exercises that can be done from a seated position. There's seated yoga, there's seated dancing. There's tons and tons of links out there. And you can do a lot of great things. A lot of Zoom meetings are happening with people doing exercises together from a seated position. So
okay, everybody. Dance party is starting right now at the round table. Everybody, You can do it. Come on, everybody at home. You can get along with it. We got 5 minutes left in this round table, and this is our Valentine's night, our Galentine's night. So we're having some fun here. And as Pattie Cornute said in the chat, all or something. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? We got 5 minutes left. I want to go around the round table one last time and a brief word of encouragement to show the love for our wonderful people who gave an hour of their time to be with us tonight. And I am also loving all of you for being so gracious with your time. Start with you, Dr. McHutchison, word of encouragement.
I just want everyone to realize that everybody has something. And like I have issues with torn cartilages in my knees. I can't do the same things I used to do 20 years ago either. And everyone puts himself under a microscope, and people really aren't really looking at the lipedema lady's shape. They're so consumed with what their own issues are, and that just remember, people really aren't looking at you and judging you the way you're judging yourself. People are really so self-consumed and worried whether they have a pimple on their nose, or if their hair isn't fixed, or if some other issue of themselves. And just, you know, just remember that you're putting yourself under a microscope that other people really aren't doing.
Perfect. Love it. Cheryl, what would you say? Word of encouragement.
Well, to kind of bounce off of Dr. McHutchison, I think each of us is our own worst critic. And so if you just realize that and instead turn it around and look at loving yourself, and everyone know that you can take control of your lipedema.
Beautiful. Siouxsie.
Yes. Here's what I want to say. Most of the women that I've met in this lipedema world are beautiful, amazing, very empathetic, spiritually dynamic women. That's the reality of it. And you know what? If you don't feel like that, it's not true. We love you and you're worth it. And the crowd here is a crowd that's worth attaching yourself to. And if you feel that you're surrounded by negativity, then detach yourself from it. I can't tell you how liberating it is. I just turned 50, and I just will say one last thing fast, is I was thinking about like the little old lady who's like, oh, do you know how your father used to bend me over in the kitchen? Everybody's like, oh my God, Mom, what are you saying? And you think she's senile, but she's not. She just doesn't give a shit anymore. And it's so liberating. So I'm sorry that I said that, but I had to say it because
we were waiting for you to drop something, Siouxsie. So thank you. Yeah, you know, you do get to a point where you're freed up, but that's so good. And by the way, if those gummy bears make you look that good at 50, honey, I'll have what she's having. Angelique, a quick word of encouragement. We have 2 minutes left. It's a 2-minute warning.
Well, when I got into the lipedema community last year, I just got myself completely overwhelmed because these ladies were just trudging forward so fast, and they were doing Tabata, Pattie, and the sensitivities, and I was wanting to like take on everything. And you know, I started to dial back on my social media. I started to dial back on what I was eating and what I was doing. And what I realized in that was it was okay to take this in small little steps of what I could take on. So I just want to encourage anybody that's out there and watching to know that it's okay to take on little baby steps. Don't think that you have to be out there running marathons right this minute. But like Cheryl said earlier, if you have 5 minutes that you can dedicate towards yourself, whatever part of the therapies that you can get in, whatever you can afford at that time, don't feel like you have to afford everything just to be able to do something. Love yourself enough to do just enough for that day.
Perfectly said. I always want to take up a collection after you speak, Angelique. It's just so good. Curvy Girl Beth, you are our special guest for this special Valentine's Self-Love edition. What words of encouragement would you leave our audience with?
I think that the biggest word of encouragement is to realize that your uniqueness is your superpower. And as Dr. Lindsay said, We all have some kind of cross to bear. Many of us, feel that our lipedema may be our biggest one, or maybe it's not even. And really echo, what Siouxsie said, is to get with the positive crowd, because we're all here. I'm on CurvyGirlBeth on both, well, I'm on all social media at CurvyGirlBeth, so IG is my biggest platform, and feel free to reach out anytime because I love to connect with our lipedema ladies.
Well, we loved connecting with you tonight. Pale Ginger Pear, words of encouragement.
I would just say start telling your story, because before you know it, you're going to get to a point where you didn't realize how bad it was. Like, I just was saying to Dr. Jaime yesterday, like, I look back at pictures from last year and was like, oh, I forgot how painful and heavy that was. Like, I am already to a point where I feel so much better that, like, I forgot how miserable it was. So just start it and you'll get to where you need to be.
Beautiful. Did I do you, Dr. Linda Anne Kahn?
No. Okay. I have something to read to you from Roomie, who's one of my favorite philosophers.
I love Roomie. Go for it.
It's about love. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it.
Wow. Beautifully said. I love that. Dr. Jaime, thank you for being here. Do you have a final word of encouragement for everyone?
Thank you for having me. My encouragement is actually going to be insurance. It's happening. It's really happening. People are getting approved all the time. Aetna is the best one out there. Just letting everybody know, let your friends know. We are getting that approved in our office. I mean, it's literally been days now. And so it's the best thing. We spent a lot of time last year fighting this, and it's happening. And a lot of people are going to be able to open themselves up to treatment, which is, I think, what they should be able to. So I don't know if that's my encouragement, but that's literally, it's a happy thing for us.
I love this panel because we can go from Roomie to insurance. Guess who?
Sorry.
No, I love it. Are you kidding me? And we're 3 minutes over, so I'll have to edit. I'll edit myself out, everybody. But Dr. Herbst, we adore you. We honor and respect you. You get the last word.
I just want to say to everybody, it's so nice to be seeing patients again. Every time I see a patient, I swear I fill up with love more and more. And I love to figure stuff out, and I love to give. And I just want to thank everyone who's come see me and everyone who will, and all of you that are here. I love you all so much. And thank you so much for letting me be a part of your life and a part of your future.
We're so glad that you are. And love never fails.
It never fails.
It never fails. Thank you, everyone. We have momentum going. 2021 is going to be an awesome year. Stay with us. Contact me. I can connect you with any of these folks. I need to shut up now. You all need to have a great night. It's wonderful to see you. Have a great night, and we'll see you next month at the round table. Bye, everybody.
Good night.